Hi everyone, Cam here from Yes Auto, and today I'm going to be driving this thing, the new Porsche Panamera Sport Turismo. Now the Panamera is kind of the car that you go for if you're not really fully ready yet to go to a fully electric car in the form of the Porsche Taycan, or in this case the Taycan Cross Turismo. Now the Panamera Sport Turismo was lightly revised for 2021, and in this video I'm going to go over some of those updates on the outside and on the inside and see just what it's like out on the open road. But before I get into the review, remember to leave me a like and subscribe for more epic videos just like this one. Now, it's actually very difficult to spot the differences between the new Panamera and the pre-facelift, but I'm going to point out some of the differences. So to start off with, the headlight design is ever so slightly different, as is the front bumper, although it's actually quite hard to spot on this car because we have the sports design package. And on the sports design package, what you do is you actually have a body colour skirt that runs around the base of the car. And if you don't go for that, it's black. I'm not sure if it's plastic or not, but it's basically a black rim that runs around the edge of the car. And also on the sports design package, you get a body coloured flick here, whereas on the standard car, that is black and integrated into the grille, bumper, grille, vent thing. Moving further around the car, we've got a new selection of wheels ranging from 19-inch to 21s. These are 21s and I think they look absolutely stunning. The 19s are very dinky, and as you can see, the Panamera Sport Turismo is a very big car. Go for small wheels and they just kind of get swallowed up with the body. We've also got a new selection of colours. This burgundy, I believe, was available on the previous generation as well. What do you think of burgundy body and red brakes? Not sure I'm really into that. And I'm glad we're at the back now because I can point out the biggest difference between this and the previous version, and it's the light bar. So the main difference you can really spot between this and the old car is that the light bar is just a little bit better integrated than it was in the other one. It was two very clear sections of light and the bar across and then light again, whereas on here it's all one big integrated unit and looks lovely, particularly at night. If you were following this, it would look very, very good. You've also got a slightly revised exhaust design, but it's actually very hard, again, to spot the differences. This is a very, very light facelift. I also wanted to point out as well is because this is the E-Hybrid, you get these greeny, neon green highlights around the Panamera badge here and also the E-Hybrid badges at the side. You can also get that colour on the brake calipers as well, but I think it's a little bit nasty, and the good thing is you can have it as an optional extra to just have those in silver or get rid of them altogether. So the big benefit of the Sport Turismo is that you get a bigger boot and also that longer roofline. So the standard Panamera, 493 litres back here. On the Sport Turismo we have 515. The only problem is though is that this is the E-Hybrid, and so it comes with 100 litres less because all the hybrid system stuff is all stored at the back of the car. So that also means that if I were to go and lift up the boot floor for a bit of extra space, there's nothing there. It's just cables and batteries and stuff. It's also worth bearing in mind that if you want to take your charging cables around, you're going to need to keep them in the boot, and that takes up a fair bit of room. The good thing is though, is that it actually comes with these little clips, so you can clip it in place so that it doesn't go flying around when you're hooning around the Nürburgring. I can't get that connected up. Another thing as well is if you want to open up a bit more room, you actually have electric releases for the seats. So they're just tucked around here. If I press that, then they'll fall automatically. That one hasn't, but there might be something on the seat. Oh, it's going down now. Now, under the extremely long bonnet of the Panamera is a mostly covered up 2.9 litre twin turbocharged V6 engine. Now the range starts off with the 4, and in that one it develops 325 brake horsepower. Then you've got the 4S and it gets bumped up to 434. Then there are the E-Hybrids, which come with an electric motor and battery pack. Now on the 4 E-Hybrid, this thing produces 456 brake horsepower, but the one that you see here is the 4S E-Hybrid, and that goes all the way up to 552. But if a V6 sounds a bit wussy to you, then you can get this with a 4-litre twin-turbo V8. And in the GTS, it pumps out 473 brake horsepower. There's no turbo, it just goes straight to the Turbo S. On that one, it produces 621 bhp. And then if you go for the Turbo S E-Hybrid, it churns out an incredible 694 brake horsepower. Now, no matter which car you go for, they all get all-wheel drive, so they are blisteringly quick off the line, and they also come with 8-speed automatic gearboxes. So the big change in the new Panamera on the inside is that we have an updated infotainment display. So it's now a much higher resolution, and it looks absolutely stunning. Now, I often give cars a bit of a bashing for having really touch-focused controls of where everything is done through the touchscreen, and that's mostly the case on the Porsche, but there are 3 reasons of why it works really well. First of all, it looks great, so it's really nice and easy to read. The second thing, it's intuitively laid out, so everything is kind of where I would expect it to be. If I wanted to go and adjust things to do with, let's say, the performance, I hit the car button, I get a picture of the car, and I just click on either the chassis settings or the drive modes, which I can also change on a shortcut on the steering wheel. And that brings up point 3 of why this is such a good system, is that we have these shortcuts in the center console. And while they're not physical buttons, apart from the rocker switches for the climate, and there's also a very small rotary dial to flick through the menus on the infotainment screen, it's all done through haptic feedback and is all within reaching distance. I think that sounds kind of cheap. While there are shortcuts for the climate controls here on the center console, there are also a few things that you can control through the infotainment screen. And one thing that I think is so cool is you've got this really sleek center vent here, and there's a button to switch it on and off from the center console. So when I press it off, it slowly closes, and then if I open it up, it slowly opens. It looks really slick. But another cool thing is I can actually change the direction of where the fans go. So if I move that to the left a little bit, the vents start moving around. And if I slot it up and down, you can see the vents start to move. And that brings me on to the price of the Panamera Sport Turismo. Prices start at £75,000 for the 4 and go all the way up to 142 for the Turbo S E-Hybrid. Now, that actually puts it in very close proximity to the Taycan. In fact, they're priced pretty much exactly the same. Entry-level Taycans start at around £70,000 and go all the way up to around about 140. Some might say, well, it would just make sense to go for a Taycan, right? Well, it's not really as simple as that. The Panamera is bigger, it's a bit more spacious, and you have more room in the back, even compared to the Taycan Cross Turismo. And if you are wanting to go on longer journeys, then this still makes a lot of sense. But if you're in it for the electric stuff, the Taycan is probably the car to go for. Now, the Panamera is a huge car, so it doesn't come as a big surprise that it is very spacious back here. So I measure in at just under 6 foot, and legroom is absolutely fine with the driver's seat in my position, and headroom is pretty damn good too. It's worth bearing in mind as well that we've got the panoramic roof in this model, which is optional, and that usually cuts into headspace. So if you don't have that, you should have even more. Now, one of the options we actually have back here is in the center console here, is a little button to actually go and close the roof. So if it's a little bit bright or you want some privacy, you can just close it up, which is pretty damn good. There's also a couple of trays back here. Now, it is technically a 5-seater, so there is a middle seat. However, this really is only used in emergencies. So if I were to go and sit there, it's possible and doesn't feel ridiculously uncomfortable, but the only problem is that I've got this massive center console in my way with all the heaters pointed in a certain direction. So it really works best as a 4-seater luxury limo. Panamera Sport Turismo is many different cars in one, and it wears many different hats. So I'm going to start this off by leaving it in hybrid mode for the moment. So we're using engine power and also a bit of the battery power, and I've also got the suspension in its softest setting. And when it's like that, it's a bit like driving the Porsche equivalent of a Rolls-Royce. It feels a bit like you're driving a bed around, because it is doing such a superb job of keeping everything hushed. The road noise, the wind noise, the noise from the engine. And again, I am driving around here at the moment with the motor running. It's not just on battery power. I'm currently at 1,500 RPM and I can barely hear the engine. It's very quiet. But it can get even quieter if you want. So if I switch the dial into e-power mode, we're now running on electric power alone. So Porsche claims a battery range of up to 33 miles on a full charge, and it's a plug-in hybrid. So yes, we can run on battery power alone for that time, but we can also plug it into the wall and charge it up overnight. If you don't want to use that, you can also charge it on the motor, which is going to use up a bit more fuel and make the motor strain a little bit harder, but it means that you won't be stopping off. And it works out really well if you're a bit like me and don't live anywhere near a charger. You can just charge it up when you're on the go. It's just bizarre driving around on electric power because it's the polar opposite of the character I'm about to change into. So if I turn it up to Sport Plus and give it a bit of welly, oh, yeah, it really comes alive. It's such a fast car. So it's all-wheel drive. All versions are all-wheel drive, and you just, as soon as you put your foot down, you can just feel the front wheels just gripping into the tarmac and leaping off into the horizon. It just feels like an absolute brute. And this isn't even the ultra-fast one. Yeah, 522 horsepower is pretty damn quick, but you can buy one with nearly 700 horsepower. That would feel, I'm sure that would feel absolutely brutal. And it's quite a heavy car. We're looking at something that weighs over 2 tons, but all that weight is kept pretty low. So it does feel in some ways that when you put it in its firmer settings that you're bashing the tarmac flat rather than riding over the top of it. I'm going to try a little 0 to 60 sprint. Yeah, that could get quite addictive. What I will say though is that it doesn't exactly make the nicest sound. It doesn't have a beautiful backing track to go along with the performance. And even in its sportiest setting, I've got the flaps open at the moment at the back of the car. The gearbox isn't the snappiest. You know, we have got an automatic at the end of the day. It doesn't feel like the sportiest car out there. Now, because the Sport Chrono package comes as standard, we also have a little button on the drive mode selector down here that gives us a bit of a performance boost. So if I were to drop it to second and press that button and floor it, it just feels a little bit faster. So what it does is it puts the gearbox and engine in Porsche quotes to optimum settings for 20 seconds, and in that time basically the car will become more responsive, a bit more powerful, and it means you can make nice quick overtakes. It's a really clever system. It just means that the engine is never strained. If you want maximum power, you can just get it in a short burst. I guess what a lot of people are asking though is, now that the Taycan is here and it offers a pretty decent electric range, and we've also got the Cross Turismo Taycan, is the Panamera still relevant? And again, the same with the Sport Turismo, we've got the Cross Turismo Taycan. But having driven this, I realised that it still very much has a place in Porsche's range. First of all, it's bigger than a Taycan. A Taycan can be a little bit of a squeeze, particularly in the back, because it's kind of a mix between an EV saloon and a sports car. But the other benefit of going for the Panamera, particularly if you get an E-Hybrid, is not only is it ballistically fast, Not quite as quick as a Taycan Turbo S, which will rip your face off, but it's still very fast. But you'll also sip away at your fuel, so it really is ideal for those either not ready to go over to an electric car yet, or if you often go on long journeys and don't have the time to stop off and charge up. Overall though, I really like the Panamera. Fantastic car, still has its place alongside the Taycan, but of course, if the starting price of $75,000 seems too expensive, head over to yesauto.com because we've got deals on new and used Panameras, and the used ones can go for about 30 grand. So head over, go find yourself a deal, because you might be able to save yourself a bit of money on what is otherwise a very expensive but luxurious car.